Hello, and welcome to Confessions of a Terrible Leader, where real leaders share the raw truth about the lessons they learned the hard way, so you don't have to. Join our host, Layci Nelson, founder of Transcend Leadership Collective and former terrible leader. Every leader can become worthy of being followed if they are willing to put in the work. On this podcast, we share the messy stories and behind-the-scenes reality of what the work actually entails. We welcome you to this community of revolutionary leaders who believe honest communication, healthy conflict, and building cultures of acceptance, respect, and trust are not only possible, but non-negotiable for cultivating world-class teams.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to Confessions of a Terrible Leader. I'm your host and former absolutely terrible leader, Layci Nelson. Chris Seifert is joining us today. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Great to be here.
You're the founder of Enabling Empowerment. You are a manufacturing executive advisor as well as an author. Did I nail it?
You did.
Okay. So I'm a member of Women in Manufacturing, the group. We are manufacturing adjacent, work with a lot of manufacturing organizations here in our area, as well as beyond. So I am so excited to have this conversation with you today and just talk shop while people listen in. But first, tell me a little bit about what led you to, I'm assuming you didn't start here. How did you get to where you're at right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have over 25 years combined leadership and consulting experience. About a third of that was on active duty in the Navy, in the submarine force. So spent my first 8 years of my career doing that. Got out of the Navy, transitioned into manufacturing operations, was a plant manager for a couple different Georgia Pacific plants, and Owens Corning plant. Then a detour into consulting, where I was a partner in a consulting firm for about 6 years. And then my last operational role, I was vice president of operations for a biomass fuel manufacturer. And during that time, we grew that business. When I joined, it was about 350 people, about 400 million revenue, 4 plants. And in the 6 years I was there, we grew it to 1.3 billion, 14 facilities, and about 1,500 people. So ton of growth. I left that role, having found over the course of my career a very specific problem. There are really two, but one that I thought was not being solved very well. And those are that first, every team I've led over my career, I have found struggles with two things. One, root cause analysis, and two, decision making. And in both cases, I think, the human brain isn't really very good at either one. We tend to be very good at correlation, not causation, right? And we tend to be very impulsive as humans in our decision making, right? And neither of which is very good in a manufacturing environment, right?
All things you have said are true. Yes.
And I had found that there are quite a few vendors that I actually think do help with the root cause analysis. There's been ones I've migrated to over the years that I've used, but there was never anybody that was helping with the decision making. And over the years, I had developed a training for my team on how to make decisions. And I felt this is an area that I can step in, right? Nobody else seems to be solving this problem well. And how can I help out with that? And so started Enabling Empowerment, the company. I wrote a book by the same name, Enabling Empowerment. And really the gist is exactly what it sounds like. It's about, the intent is to enable leaders to empower their teams to make decisions.
Question. Why did you need to write a book? What specifically is getting in the way of decision making? What are the main blocks or the root causes? Where do people get stuck? Why is it so hard?
So the two things, the decision making and the micromanagement, are interrelated, right? So first off, let's start with the premise that most people are not good at making decisions in complex and uncertain environments, right?
Correct.
Our thinking processes are not adapted for that, right? And so I spend a lot of time in my book talking about cognitive biases and the things that cause us to make bad decisions. But the problem is that when we are elevating people into leadership roles, one of the things we're asking them to do is make more decisions, right? Be accountable for more decisions. My experience has been the vast majority of organizations are not investing in the leadership skills of those people because decision making is a skill, right? You can get better at it by training and by practicing. And so it only makes sense if we're going to start elevating people into roles of leadership, we should be developing that skill in them, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
But then when we don't do that, what ends up happening is the leader above them ends up having to continue to make the decisions for them, right? Or step in and
Yep.
micromanage, right?
Yep.
If you go on LinkedIn and just go out in the social media universe, the trope is that most micromanagers are micromanagers because they're narcissists. They think they're better than everybody. They're smarter than everybody. They're control freak. Bottom line is they have some personality defect.
Right. There's a lot of that out there. Yes.
That's what the conventional wisdom is. My experience is that most leaders who are micromanaging are doing it because they had to. They don't want to do it. Who wants to do that? Who wants to be like, my first few manufacturing plants, when I took them over from a micromanager, my wife literally asked me to sleep on the couch, right? Because she said, if the phone is going to ring all night like this,
I don't want to hear it.
I can't sleep, right?
Yep.
Because they could not make a decision without calling me and asking me, running it by me.
And they had been trained to do that, whether on purpose or not.
100%. They weren't even thinking about it. It was just, this happened. I got to call the plant manager.
Yep.
And what I've come to realize was that if you want to reverse that pattern, if you've fallen into that pattern, the only way out of that is to upskill the decision-making capabilities of the team.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, how do we tell the leaders to do that? Well, you need to start coaching people, right? You need to coach them on how to make better decisions. But if I'm already having to make all the decisions, how am I going to have time to coach people?
Right.
I don't have time for this, right? I'm stuck in this trap.
I also will say, teaching what's happening in your brain to another person is not easy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So that is where I developed the decision-making framework that I teach people, right?
Excellent.
And it quite literally came from like that first plant I was at. This shift leader came up to me and said, hey, the plywood press, one of the openings broke. What do you want me to do? And I'm like, I'd like you to make a recommendation. Let's start with that. Let's start with you not asking me what to do. And it was an hour-long conversation and it was great. But I was like, holy crap, I can't do this with 500 people. It's not going to work, right? So what I did was started bringing people in and said, hey, when we make a decision, this is how we should do it. First step is frame the problem. Second step, identify alternative solutions. Third step, understand the key drivers, right? And I taught them that. And the two things it did was, one, it allowed me to upskill a bunch of people at one time, right?
Yeah.
So that instead of coaching them for an hour, now I only needed to coach them for 20 minutes. But the other thing, to your point, Layci, is now that we're all using the same decision-making framework, it's much easier for me to coach because I can go straight to, hey, I think step 3 is why this recommendation you're making to me is not making sense. Right?
Absolutely.
Or I don't think you framed that problem correctly. Or I don't think you brainstormed the alternatives well, right? Go brainstorm some more alternatives. And so by having a framework and a common language to pinpoint why is this person's recommendation so crazy, I can be much more efficient in coaching and training them, right?
Absolutely. And also, I would add, they're going to be more efficient with each other before they even come to you.
Yeah, 100%.
Did you see that happening with that fruit of, they've already worked it out and haven't even talked to me?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, that's the power of any time you're using a common framework, right? The learning between people is just amplified, right? The velocity of the learning because you're all using the same language, right?
Yep.
You know what step 3 is and step 4 is in your process, then it's easier for you to share knowledge.
Yes. The power of a shared lexicon. And eventually, like you had cited, your teams you develop a shorthand that takes hours out of your day. In the best way, it gives you hours back, I should say. It takes hours out of what you were doing, with having to really break it down to just, go back, rerun step 3, tell me what you come up with.
Yeah. And just teaching them the common decision-making framework, then they knew, look, it's okay. If you need help, call me. I want you to call me. I just want you to feel like you have to call me, right?
Right.
But when you do call me, I want you to use the framework to communicate your recommendation to me.
Exactly.
That way, when I get through it, I could be like, look, you're great. You thought through this clearly. You don't need my help. Go.
Right.
And then slowly over time, I was in a term I like to call is decision rights. To give people the rights to make decisions. And my experience has been that most organizations assign decision rights based on roles. So everybody with the same role will have the same level of decision rights.
Right.
If you think about it, what does that mean? That means I'm probably giving some plant manager authority to make a decision that he probably shouldn't have. There's another one that probably should have more authority that I'm not giving it to. Right? That's the only thing I know. I'm probably not right. So what I should be doing,
someone with no label at all. who has massive expertise in an area.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So another thing I did with the group was say, what are the common things we're making decisions about, right?
Mhm.
So one, you're asking me to spend money. Two,
Yep.
you're asking me to take a machine down or start up a different machine or reconfigure the way we're running the plant.
Yeah.
What we need to do is start saying, hey, based on your past decisions, you're going to get assigned a level of decision rights within that space.
Mhm.
And then as you come to me with your recommendations and make better and better decision rights, you're going to earn more and more decision rights, right? So maybe permission to spend money goes from $1,000 to $10,000, right?
Right.
Or
Right.
you can make changes to the operation as long as it doesn't impact more than 2 hours of production or whatever. And then people can begin to earn those and feel like, hey, I have more autonomy here in how I do my work.
Yes. I love it. And it creates empowerment. And back to the title of your book. So
Right.
one of the things I would love to know, it can be a big challenge to convince anyone in manufacturing to slow down enough to front load the skills.
Yeah.
You have to go slow to go fast, right? You're going to have a cost up front, whether it's in production, output, something's going to slow down in order to impart these skills and then take the time and the space to actually start practicing them. What do you tell the manufacturer who clearly needs this help? The plant manager, the ops director, they need these skills, but they're really struggling with but do I shut down a line for this? Or I don't know how to make this work. How do you have that conversation? If they're listening now, what do you want to tell them?
I would tell you first off that most organizations already have some leadership development training program, right?
Yep.
I mean, if you're of any size and consequence, right, you have more than one facility, you got some kind of common leadership training. My question would be, where is decision making in that? And if it's not at the top, at the very least, you need to find something to take out and put it in. Because at the end of the day, the performance of your organization is a function of the quality of the decisions your team makes and your ability to execute those decisions. That's it. And so you better make good decisions, and you better be better at making decisions than your competitors are.
Yes.
And if you have not made that a deliberate, hey, I'm going to be better at making decisions than my competitors are, then you're leaving it to chance, right? And so I would say you already have some type of leadership training.
Right.
What's in it? And if decision making isn't, that's the first place I would start, is asking why not? I mean, look, we need to talk to our new leaders about how to better communicate with people, how to give them performance feedback, how to do that kind of stuff. But we're spending tons of time on soft skills, and we're not spending time on the thing that we just promoted the person into. And that seems like we're not allocating our resources.
So in your mind, quick question, what differentiates a soft skill from a hard skill?
That's a great question. I don't know. I'm certainly not the expert on that, but I guess I just would say we spend a lot of time on the relationship stuff, which is important, right? When we are promoting people into roles, then yes, how their relationships with their peers are going to be is different.
Right.
I just think we're neglecting
this tool
portion of their job, which is make decisions, right? I mean, I'm now a supervisor. I've got to decide, hey, I don't have enough people. What choices do I make about what I do? These are the things that I'm going to be confronted with on a daily basis. And if my only solution is pick up the phone and call my boss,
you need a new solution.
Why did we promote you?
When you're going in and working with an organization and they're implementing this skill, where do you see it tend to fly off the rails? They're starting to go back to old habits. Is there a common point that you see that and they have to really get intentional and dial in?
I like to do a graphic analogy that I use with teams, where I say any kind of culture change, right? My question to you is, are you committed like the pig is committed to breakfast or the chicken is committed to breakfast? Okay. And what I mean by that is the chicken makes a donation to breakfast, right? But the pig's all in. It's not coming back.
Yeah.
There's no more. It went to breakfast. It's done. So what does that look like for leaders and when they're trying to change the culture, right? Leaders who are willing to come to the training, put some time on their calendar, dedicate a meeting, send out an email. Congratulations, you're the chicken, right? That's great. Those things are all important. You've made a donation. But to really change, you're going to have to change the way you behave.
Yep.
And so what that means is if you're going to teach these people how to use a decision-making framework, you've got to use it to give them feedback.
Yes.
You can't just, nope, that's a dumb idea. We're not doing that. You're going to have to upskill the people to make decisions. They just start asking them to make more decisions. Recommendations are horrible. The leader steps in is like, this is stupid. I can't, it goes right back to the way they were, and things are worse off than they ever were before. And so that's the main thing. When I work with people, before we start focusing on changing the culture, we upskill the team, right? Like we say, hey, we need to change from this culture of, call it codependent leadership, where we're dependent on the leader to make decisions.
Yeah.
We want to change that. That's great. But before we start telling you to make more decisions, we need to give you the training.
Right.
Then once we've done the training, then we can tell you, now we want to start changing the way we act.
Great. Yes. Buy-in from the top and modeling the behavior. Anything that we teach, anything that we do going into an organization, if they're not on board, it will fall apart. And by on board, I love the analogy. They can't be chickens. They gotta be pigs. They gotta be all in.
That's right.
So if you're ready, I will shift gears and invite you into the confessional for your story you have to share with us today. The dues you've paid, the mistakes you've made that hopefully can help someone listening get the lesson without the scar tissue.
Sure. This is another story that I talked about in the book that really changed the way I approach managing a team, leading a team in general. When I was getting out of the Navy, man, I was at the time, and I don't know if it was just where business culture was in general, but man, I was the most KPI driven, results driven person on the planet. By the way, I'm getting out of the Navy and I'm also getting my MBA. And I read at the same time Jack Welch's Straight from the Gut and Larry Bossidy's The Art of Execution, which are all about results, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's all it is. It's about results. And look, I'm being maybe a little bit facetious, but about beating people over the heads with results.
Jack Welch is like a mixed review in general for his style. And yeah, absolutely. You came out of the gate hot, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So we were KPIing, like that was the first thing I did. Like we turned everything. I mean, we had daily KPI meetings, weekly KPI. I mean, it was just one KPI after another, right? And I joke now in hindsight that when it comes to the continuous improvement cycle, plan, do, check, act, I was just check. Like we're just going to check all the time, right?
Yeah.
We're not planning and doing. We're just checking. I think it took a lot with that first team for me to realize that there's a lot more to it. Results are important, but at the end of the day, it's about the processes and the systems and the culture that I create as a leader. And that I can get great results short term with the wrong systems and culture.
Yep, absolutely.
I won't long term. And so that's been an important lesson for me, not just in where I was running plants, but as an executive, right?
Yeah.
It taught me, I would go into a plant and I learned to sniff out, hey, we're getting good results, but the wrong way right here, right? This isn't sustainable. We're getting it because we're beating people over the head and it's, working now, but it's not going to work forever.
It's not going to work forever.
Yeah. So I'd say that's the biggest lesson for my career.
Excellent. Don't be satisfied with the quick win up front if it's not in alignment with culture, systems, processes.
We did a study. So when I was with a consulting company, we were doing a lot of benchmarking on what makes the nuclear Navy's culture so safe, right? Like how are they so safe in what is the most dangerous, complex environment in the world?
Right.
And they have the best safety record. How do they do that? What is it about their culture?
Yeah. I do not want to go on a submarine. No.
Right.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of benchmarking with them, with some submarines, and then with some oil and gas companies.
Okay.
And what struck out was we had them rank 40 statements about their culture and force rank them. And the submarines kept putting be results oriented in the middle. And the executives kept putting it at number one.
Yeah.
And we were like, gosh, maybe the Navy just doesn't translate. Maybe there's nothing to learn here because it's a government and there's results, so maybe that's why results don't matter. But then it struck me that I've heard a leader who is probably the most successful leader in our time in the most competitive results-driven industry on the planet. And he says, and his exact quote is, I try not to pay attention to the results. I try and pay attention to the process and the stuff we need to do every day, right? That leader is Nick Saban of the Alabama Crimson Tide. And it dawned on me that like, maybe he's right and everybody else is wrong, right?
Yeah.
Here it is. He's learned, if I want to win a championship every year, I can't pay attention to the results on the scoreboard right now in this game, right? And we may win this game.
Yeah.
We may win this game, but if we didn't do the right stuff today, I'm not going to win the game next year.
Absolutely.
Big mind shift, I think, from where a lot of leaders are.
Such a paradigm shift for them. But I'm sure you get the joy of when they do make the shift, you get to see the fruit of that, or at least you hear about it later. Because that's the fun part for us, right? When we get to go, oh my gosh, I got to see that work. It's working for these other organizations. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And their people benefit. Everybody benefits. Everybody enjoys work a lot more when they're empowered.
The great thing about helping people make better decisions is I'm not just helping, you're right, I'm not just helping them be better in their job. I'm helping them make hopefully better decisions about the house they buy, the car they buy, how they pay for the
100%.
car, it's because it's all the same stuff, right? It's all the same.
Carries over and affects their life at home. And even when they move on, they're going to take that into the next setting and keep it with them for life. That's great. Chris, thank you for joining us today. Where can people find you? We're going to drop all of your stuff in the links in the show notes, but what's the best way to get a hold of you? How do they find you?
Sure, absolutely. So www.enablingempowerment.com is the website. You'll find blog articles, the book, videos, recorded webinars. We're doing webinars all the time.
Excellent.
All that kind of stuff's out there. I'm also very active on LinkedIn. And if you send me a DM, happy to connect.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your experience, your hard-earned lessons with us today. And until next time, friends, go manage like a leader.
Thanks for being part of this community of revolutionary leaders who believe honest communication, healthy conflict, and building cultures of acceptance, respect, and trust are not only possible, but non-negotiable for cultivating world-class teams. If one-to-one coaching, engaging workshops, or strategic planning that is actually useful are anything that interests you, make sure to head over to transcendleadershipcollective.com to check out our free resources. Confessions of a Terrible Leader is hosted by Layci Nelson and produced by Mary Scott. Music is by Leif Olson and Mary Scott from the band The Number of Months. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave us a review. And until next time, go manage like a leader.